Ty Garbin, one of 6 defendants charged in the plot to kidnap and kill Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, pleaded guilty in federal court on Wednesday. Garbin was a member of the Wolverines Watchmen, a self-styled militia group that was hostile to government and angry about COVID lockdowns.
Keep moving.
Prosecutors released this video as evidence against the plotters. It purports to show Garbin and the Wolverines practicing shooting drills, ready to take on the governor's security detail.
Back.
In this video, the feds say Garbin is showing off his arsenal of weapons. This gun rally was where Adam Fox, also charged in the scheme, allegedly recruited the Wolverines and others to help carry out the plot against Governor Whitmer. According to court documents, Fox told the conspirators that the governor's vacation home would be an easier target because it could be reached by road or water, and there were no police nearby. The conspirators agreed the Capitol would be too hard of a target and began planning instead to assault the vacation home.
The alleged conspirators used operational security measures, including communicating by encrypted messaging platforms, and used code words and phrases in an attempt to avoid detection by law enforcement.
Garbin's plea agreement reveals shocking details about the conspiracy. The plan included trips between Garbin's home in Luther to the governor's summer residence on Mackinac Island to survey the property. The suspect also discussed blowing up a nearby bridge. Ty Garbin, in a text, wrote, "If the bridge goes down, it will stop the wave," suggesting that taking down the bridge would hinder police response to the kidnapping and to further advance the plot. Garbin offered to paint his boat black for a night reconnaissance of the Whitmer vacation home.
When I put my hand on the Bible and took the oath of office 22 months ago, I knew this job would be hard. But I'll be honest, I never could have imagined anything like this.
As part of the deal with prosecutors, Garbin has agreed to cooperate fully and testify against his co-defendants.
The cooperation automatically allows him reduction points in the way that the federal sentencing guidelines operate. So now we see a much more likely range of punishments that's in the dozen-plus year type of range. It could get into the 20-year range, depending on how the judge sees it.
Garbin and his co-defendants are charged with conspiracy to kidnap, which carries a potential sentence of life in prison without parole.
I don't know if you noticed that in the training video, the blue PT Cruiser. Were they going to storm the governor's home with the PT Cruiser? Unbelievable. Let's bring in Court TV anchor Ted Rollins. Ted, it's still shocking today that these 6 thought they could get together and pull this whole thing off.
Yeah, you watch the training video, and if it wasn't so deadly serious, what they were planning to do, it's laughable. I mean, you see these guys with their PT Cruiser and their fatigues, and they're so deadly serious, doing these different moves. It's ridiculous. However, they were dead serious, and the information that has been unearthed now by this investigation is scary. I mean, I remember when this came out, and I thought, I wonder if this was just talk. Now they've got a guy that's flipped, and that changes the game. To your point, that talking defense goes out the door when you have someone who takes the stand and says, "Oh no, this was not just talk. We were going to take Billy's PT Cruiser and we were going to do this."
Yeah, getting the inside information, and in most federal trials, that's how it goes. They've got, I'm sure there's an undercover who's wearing a wire. They're going to be audio surveillance, video surveillance. You flip one of the defendants. They're going to have a solid case here. Andrew Chukowski, you spoke with him, a former federal prosecutor, talked about how surprised he was with how far they actually took this thing. Let's take a listen to that.
We should.
It is quite shocking how far they went to actually plan this plot and potentially carry it out. It's one thing for people to just be chatting back and forth in a chat room about their fantasies about what they would do if it was a different sort of situation. You can imagine that people do that, and they should be watched very closely. But these folks actually took it to the next level, where they started to meet and discuss it, make plans as to how they could do it. They practiced. They had actual days where they set up a fake house to assault it and storm it. These are people who were very serious about maintaining and gaining all of the training and skills necessary to carry out the thing itself. And that is very disturbing.
And Ted, the other thing, when you're talking about a conspiracy, right? People talking about doing something, to further that conspiracy, they've got to take some sort of a step towards doing it. And it seems between all this planning and the meetings and the reconnaissance missions that they may very well have taken those steps.
Yeah, and that's going to be up to the jury to how serious this was. And there is a fine line. You could talk all you want about something, unless you do take a step towards it, it changes the game. And that's where this informant comes in, or this one of the suspects that flips, because that'll be an inside look. And of course, that, he'll be attacked on the stand by the other defense attorneys saying you're doing this for a better deal, which he is. But without that, I think this is a pretty tough case. With it, much easier.
Oh, absolutely. And that cross-examination always happens, right? You're doing, well, that doesn't make it not true. It means he got caught, so this is the best way for me to save a little bit of time on the back end of my sentence. Andrew Cherkasky also spoke about the significance of this plea deal. Let's listen to that.
It's very important in this case to have reached this plea agreement because it breaks it wide open. It no longer leaves any doubt or lingering questions about the degree of the planning, whether this was just kind of a joke amongst friends or something of that nature. This definitely puts it in that much more serious category that I think the feds are very interested in being able to put out in front page news, letting everyone know that these were very serious threats that they were able to quash and are able to punish very harshly. So I think the feds are getting what they're looking for here. This should be their smoking gun for whatever other evidence is out there to establish all the details of these various plots that they had put together and the actions to carry it out that they had seen. All of that aside, with the actual testimony of someone who was there, I think that's the end of the game. You have everything you need to establish how this went down. And so unless he presents himself just terribly, incredibly, I think that this really cements the government's case.
Ted, do we know, of the 6 who are accused here, was one of them a leader, or was there any sort of hierarchy? And if so, where this guy kind of was, the one who's flipped?
We know that the individual that flipped was part of the Michigan militia group, but Fox was the guy that came in and met them all at a rally. It was an extraordinary rally, actually, because there were guns everywhere, and it was on the steps of the Capitol in Lansing, Michigan. And that's where the recruitment started. This was kind of his idea, according to the government. And so he would be, I guess, the leader, if there was one. However, once the militia joined in and others, then it became, the way the government describes it, as a team, right? That was all planning this whole thing, including these recon missions, these weekend warrior practice sessions. They were videoing and critiquing. I think another point we should make is I think the government, too, is going to be successful, not only possibly with convictions here, but also in sending a message, because there are weekend warriors out there talking big games, and probably in most of the United States. Every state's got little pockets of it, and the government's flexing its muscle with this one, saying, "Be careful how far you go with this, guys, because we will. You'll pay for it."
The defense in cases like this usually goes after whoever that informant is, who has infiltrated the group, and they'll often point to him as kind of the one who is pushing the group forward, a quasi-entrapment type defense. Not sure if that's going to happen here, but Andrew Cherkasky did talk about what the defense could be.
Well, I would think that the feds, if they are cutting a deal for that benefit, really think that he's going to provide them something valuable by way of the testimony that he'll provide. Now, on the other side, I could see the defense trying to use him to show that this was perhaps more of his idea and that their clients weren't as culpable, or using it as some sort of ability to mitigate it, show that this was just a bunch of guys who were hanging out with a hobby that about guns and talking about politics, and it went a little too far. I don't think, based on what the allegations are, that's going to be very successful, but they could try to make this kind of a good old boys defense, is I think the best way to put it. I see a good old boys defense as this is just a bunch of guys in the country drinking beer, thinking about politics and enjoying their Second Amendment rights and shooting guns and having a good time doing it. And that they then took that idea and then started talking very specifically and turned it into a terrible criminal action where they really truly started to make plans forward to kidnap or assassinate politicians. You see, that's where a defense like that starts to fall apart very, very quickly. And I don't think that there's going to be any sympathy from a jury or a judge on that type of approach.
But Ted, at the end of the day, when this trial does happen, folks around America won't get to see it because the Supreme Court of the United States is still afraid of cameras.
Absolutely. Well said, Vinny. Good way to end.
I always have to throw it in there anytime we cover a federal case. Yeah. Ted Rollins, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much.
You too. Thanks.